Before time itself, before empires and kings, before history began, God spoke. Let there be light, and out of nothing, the universe was born, and light shattered the darkness. The seas were divided. The land rose from the waters. The heavens were filled with light. The stars were set in their place, and at the pinnacle of creation, God made man. Man was free. He lived in harmony with God. No fear, no suffering, no death until he lost it all. Ali changed everything. Rebellion destroyed everything. And in a single moment, A was closed. Man fell, sin entered the world. And from that day forward, the fate of humanity was forever changed. Since then, man has wrestled with his own wickedness. The days grew dark. Generations were corrupted. Violence filled the earth until God brought justice, and with water he wiped away the ancient world. Yet even in judgment, God preserved a remnant. He always had a plan. He always called his own to believe. Men sought to be like God. They pursued their own glory, but he crushed their pride and scattered them. And then God called a man, Abraham, leave your land, look to the heavens, so shall your descendants be. From him a people would be born, a nation that would bring redemption to the world. But their path would be hard trials, promises, betrayals, bondage. And yet through it all, God would always fulfill his purpose, for even in betrayal, God is present even in pain. God has a plan even in exile. God keeps his promise. This is the story of the beginning, the story of creation and of the fall, the story of mankind, and of the promise from the first breath of life to the birth of a nation. This is the story of Genesis. Welcome to Echoes of Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void, and darkness covered the face of the deep. But the Spirit of God moved upon the waters, and then God spoke. Let there be light, and light broke through the darkness. God separated the light from the darkness. He called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And God saw that it was good, but he was not finished yet. God stretched out the heavens, he raised the mountains, he carved out the seas with his word, he caused the rivers to flow, and he filled the earth with life. Every plant, every tree, every creature in the skies, upon the earth, and in the seas was formed by his hand. And God saw that it was good, but something was still missing, the pinnacle of his creation. Something different, something unique. God came down to the earth. He knelt over the dust, and with his own hands he formed man, but this being was not yet alive. It was Bay, shaped by the Creator, until God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man opened his eyes for the first time. Adam breathed. God said, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. God placed the man in a perfect place, a garden of delight, a paradise, without death, without sickness, without pain. And in the midst of that, Eden, God walked with his creation, but man was not complete, for, though every creature had a companion, Adam was alone. So God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man. And as he slept, he took one of his ribs, and from it he formed the woman. And when Adam awoke and saw her, he knew she was different, that she was his counterpart, that she was his companion. Adam spoke with wonder and joy. This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. And so the man and the woman lived in harmony, without shame, without fear. All was peace, all was life, all was good. But the enemy was already watching, and deep within the garden, the serpent waited for the moment to strike. There were two special trees in the garden, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And God said to Adam, of every tree in the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. But the serpent, the enemy of God, the deceiver of mankind, came near to the woman and said, has God indeed said, you shall not eat of any tree of the garden? Eve with uncertainty replied, no. We may eat the fruit of the trees, but of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat of it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. You will not surely die, for God knows that in the day you eat of it your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. The words of the serpent filled Eve's mind. She looked at the fruit. It was beautiful, it seemed good for food, and in her heart she desired to be like God. She took the fruit, plucked it from the tree, and ate it. Then she gave it to Adam, and he also ate. In that moment, everything changed. The eyes of the man and the woman were opened, and they saw that they were naked for the first time. They felt shamed for. The first time they felt fear, they hid themselves among the trees, but the voice of God was heard in the garden. "Adams, where are you? I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you not to eat? The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the fruit, and I ate. What is this you have done? The serpent deceived me, and I ate. Sin had entered the world. The curse was pronounced: pain, sweat, death. Eden was closed forever, but before man was cast out, God gave a promise from the seed of the woman. One shall come who will crush the serpent's head. Sin would not be the end. Death would not have the final word, for from that day the plan of redemption began. Man was cast out of Eden. The earth was no longer a paradise. Thorns grew among the fields, sweat fell with every labor, and death was now a reality. But even after the fall, God did not abandon humanity. Adam and Eve had children, and from their lineage the promise of redemption would come, but first sin would reveal its true face. Eve conceived and bore her first son. I have acquired a man with the help of the Lord. His name was Cain, the firstborn of humanity. Years later his brother was born. Abel. Cain worked the soil. Abel, on the other hand, was a shepherd. Each had his work, each had his own heart. But only one of them walked with God. The day came to present and offerings to the Lord. Cain brought the fruit of the ground, the result of his labor. But Abel took of his first fruits, the best lambs of his flock, the fattest, the purest, and he presented them before God. I looked with favor on Abel's offering, but I did not look with favor on Cain's. Cain grew furious, his face became downcast, his heart was filled with rage, and God spoke to him. Why are you angry, Cain? Why has your face fallen? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin lies at the door. It crouches like a beast, and its desire is to rule over you. But you must master it. The words of God echoed in Cain's mind. But instead of repenting, he was consumed with resentment. He no longer saw his brother as family. He saw him as a shadow that needed to disappear, so one day he called Abel to the field. Cain smiled. Abel suspected nothing, and when they were alone, hatred was unleashed. Cain rose against his brother. He struck him, he wounded him, and for the first time in history, human blood fell upon the earth. Where is your brother Abel? I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are cursed. You shall be a fugitive. You shall wander without rest. This is too much. Anyone who finds me will kill me. I will place a mark on you so that no one harms you, but you shall be cast out, and you will dwell in the land of Nod. Thus went away. He wandered far from the presence of God, lost, homeless, without rest. For sin had not only separated him from his brother, it had driven him away from his Creator. Cain built a city. His descendants prospered, but with every generation, wickedness increased, selfishness multiplied, violence spread across the earth. Each man lived for himself, until one day God looked upon humanity and said, My spirit shall not strive with man. Forever I will wipe from the face of the earth every living being, for the wickedness of mankind. His exceedingly great creation had turned against its Creator. The world was consumed by corruption. Every thought of man was evil. Every deed was wicked. And God, with sorrow in his heart, decided to bring an end to the age of violence. But in the midst of darkness, amidst such corruption, one man found grace in the eyes of the Lord. His name was Noah. Noah was different. While the world sank deeper into sin, he walked with God, and God spoke to him. Noah, I have determined to destroy all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence. Build an ark of wood. Make it with 3 levels, seal its planks with pitch, for within it I will preserve those who shall live. Lord, an ark, for what purpose? For I will bring a flood upon the earth. It will rain for 40 days and 40 nights. The waters will cover the mountains. and all that has the breath of life shall perish. But you shall enter the ark, you and your family, and of every kind of animal you shall bring a pair to live with you, for after the judgment, I will make a new humanity. Noah believed God, and for over 100 years he built the ark wood upon wood, plank upon plank, under the scorching sun, under the mockery of men, for the people laughed at him. Noah, it has never rained. There's no around here. Why would you need an ark? Crazy old man, he preaches about a God we've never seen, about a judgment that will never come. But Noah did not stop building, because though the world no longer believed in God, Noah did. When the ark was finished, the animals began to arrive, 2 by 2 pairs of every creature, from the greatest beast to the smallest insects, and then God gave the final command. Noah, enter the ark with your family, for in 7 days I will send the rain. Noah and his family entered. The doors of the ark were shut, and the world outside did not know that its fate was sealed. And then the sky grew dark, the wind howled. The first thunder shook the earth, and the rain began to fall. At first just a few drops, then a snowstorm, then a flood. The rivers overflowed. The seas swallowed the shores. The mountains were buried beneath the waters. Men fled to higher ground. They bounded on the doors of the ark. Noah, open up, let us in, save us, but it was too late. God had shut the door, and for 40 days and 40 nights the rain did not stop. The earth was submerged, and every living thing perished, except those within the ark. Then after 150 days the waters began to recede. The ark came to rest upon Mount Ararat, and Noah waited. He sent out a raven, but the raven did not return. Then he sent out a dove, and the dove returned with an olive leaf. The earth was being reborn, and finally God spoke to him again, come out of the ark, you, your family, and every living creature, be fruitful and fill the earth, for I will establish a covenant with you and with all creation. Noah built an altar and offered sacrifices to God. And then a sign appeared in the sky, a bow of light shining among the clouds, a promise that God would never again destroy the earth with water. Whenever you see the bow in the clouds, remember my covenant, for though man remains sinful, I, the Lord, will always keep my promise. Thus began a new humanity, a new opportunity, a new earth. But soon, man would forget God once more, and pride would lead them to challenge their Creator. The earth had been restored. The sons of Noah repopulated the world. Nations and peoples spread to the far corners of the earth. But in their hearts man had not changed. Wickedness continued to grow. Pride continued to reign. And in the plain of Shinar, a people decided to do something never seen before, a monument to their own greatness, a challenge to God himself. And they said to one another, let us build a city and a tower that reaches to the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, so that we are not scattered across the face of the earth. Brick upon brick, the tower rose higher than any building before it, a symbol of human pride. But God saw what they were doing, and he said, behold, they are one people, and they all speak the same language now. Nothing they propose to do will be impossible for them. Let us go down and confuse their language, so that they will not understand one another. And in that moment, the language of men was confused. The workers no longer understood one another. Chaos filled the city, cries in unknown tongues, confusion, desperation. The tower was left unfinished. The people scattered across the earth, and the city was called Babel, for there God confused their language, and once again man's pride was brought low. Centuries passed, nations grew, and in the midst of a pagan land, God chose a man who was not a king, nor a warrior, nor a priest, but a man who was willing to believe. Abraham, leave your country, your relatives, and your father's house, and go to the land that I will show you where to. Lord, I will make you into a great nation. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Abraham didn't understand, he didn't know where he was going, but he believed God, and he left his home. He left his land, he left everything he knew, and he followed the voice of the Creator. Because his story would be the beginning of an eternal promise, Abraham left his land. He left his home. He left his past, and he walked into the unknown. But with every step he carried a promise. God had said to him, "I will make of you a great nation. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, like the stars of the heavens, like the sand on the seashore. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." Abraham believed. He waited. But the years went by, and the promise seemed distant because Sarah, his wife, was barren. She could not bear children, and with each passing day doubt grew. Then one day Sarah said, "Abraham, the Lord has closed my womb. Take my servant Hagar, perhaps through her we may have a child." Abraham listened to Sarah, and from Hagar Ishmael was born, but he was not the child of the promise, for God had another plan. "Abraham, Sarah shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac, for with him I will establish my covenant." Abraham was 100 years old, Sarah was 90. A child was impossible, but with God nothing is impossible. One day Sarah conceived, and when the child was born, Abraham laughed with joy, for God had fulfilled his word. But the greatest test was still to come. Years later, Isaac grew. He was the son of the promise, the heir of Abraham. But then God spoke again. "Abraham, here I am, Lord. Take your son, your only son whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and there offer him as a burnt offering on the mountain that I will show you." Abraham's heart stopped. How could God ask such a thing? This was the son he had waited for his entire life, the child of the promise, the miracle. But Abraham did not hesitate, because even though he did not understand, he trusted God. And the next morning he rose early. He took his son, he took the wood, he took the knife, and he began to climb the mountain. Isaac walked beside him. He did not know what was about to happen, but something felt strange. "Father, here is the wood, and here is the fire. But where is the lamb for the sacrifice?" Abraham looked at his son, and with unwavering faith he replied, "God will provide for himself the lamb of my son." They reached the top of the mountain. Abraham built the altar. He laid the wood in order. He bound his son and placed him upon the altar. Isaac did not resist. He did not cry out. He surrendered in obedience. And Abraham raised the knife, ready to obey, ready to give everything, for in his heart he believed that if God asked for him, God could also raise his son from the dead. And just as the blade was about to fall, a voice thundered from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham, here I am. Do not lay your hand on the boy. Now I know that you fear God, for you have not withheld from me your only son." Abraham lowered the knife. He turned and saw a ram caught in a thicket. God had provided the sacrifice. Jehovah, the Lord will provide. Isaac was spared, the offering was made, and God reaffirmed his promise to Abraham, "Because you have done this and have not withheld your only son from me, I will surely bless you. I will multiply your descendants like the stars of the heavens and the sand of the sea, and in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed." Abraham came down from the mountain, and the promise of God remained alive, for from his lineage would come Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, and later the Savior of the world. Because that day on Mount Moriah, God not only saved Isaac, God revealed the future, for one day on that same mountain, a father would indeed give his son. A son would truly be sacrificed, and his blood would bring redemption to mankind. The promise of God continued through Isaac. He inherited the covenant of his father, Abraham, and with his wife Rebekah, he had 2 sons, 2 brothers, 2 nations, 2 destinies at odds since the womb. When Rebekah became pregnant, she felt a struggle within her, concerned. She sought the Lord, and he answered her, "2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples shall be divided from within you. One shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger." Isaac was around 60 years old when the day of birth came. The first boy was born red and covered with hair. They named him Esau, but when he came out, his brother was holding onto his heel, so they named him Jacob from the very first moment the struggle between them had begun. Years passed, the boys grew. Esau became a hunter, strong, wild, a man of the open fields. Jacob, in contrast, was quiet, a man of tents, a man who watched and waited. Because even though Esau was the firstborn, Jacob longed for the blessing. One day Esau came back from the field, weary and starving. Jacob was cooking a red stew. Its aroma filled the tent. Esau could not resist. So he said, "Give me some of that stew." I'm starving." But Jacob replied with gunning, "Sell me your birthright." "What good is the birthright to me if I'm about to die? Swear it to me." Esau swore for a mere bowl of food he sold his birthright. He despised the blessing of God, and Jacob took it. But the true battle had only just begun. More than 60 years passed. Isaac grew old until he was 137. His eyes had dimmed. He began to lose his sight, and one day he called to his son Esau and said, "My son, I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Take your bow and go out to hunt. Prepare for me a meal so that I may bless you before I die." Rebekah overheard the conversation. She remembered the prophecy, "The older shall serve the younger," and in her heart she chose to help Jacob. Rebekah spoke, "Jacob, your father is going to bless Esau. Do as I say, go to the flock and bring me 2 young goats. I will prepare a meal for your father, and you will receive the blessing in his place. But Mother, Esau is hairy and I am not. If my father touches me, he will know I deceived him. And instead of a blessing, I will receive a curse. Let the curse fall on me. Just do as I say." Jacob took the goatskins, placed them on his arms and neck. Rebekah prepared the meal, and Jacob entered his father's tent. "My father, who are you?" "My son, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you asked. Rise and eat so that you may bless me." "How did you find it so quickly?" "The Lord your God helped me." Isaac was suspicious, but when he touched Jacob's arms, he felt Esau's hair. When he smelled his garments, he sensed the scent of the field. And so he gave him the blessing. "May God give you the dew of heaven and the fatness of the earth. May people serve you, and nations bow down before you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you." Jacob left the tent. But shortly after, Esau arrived with his hunt. And when he realized what had happened, he trembled violently and said, "Father, do you not have another blessing for me? Your brother came with deceit and has taken your blessing. Jacob has deceived me twice. He took my birthright, and now he has taken my blessing. When my father dies, I will kill my brother." Rebekah heard Esau's words, and fearing for Jacob's life, she sent him away. He fled to the land of Haran, to the house of his uncle Laban. Jacob had received the blessing, but now he was a fugitive, a man without a home, a man on the run. But in the midst of his solitude, God would find him. Jacob walked until the sun began to set. He had no shelter, no companion. So he took a stone for a pillow and laid down on the ground. And as he slept, he had a dream. Jacob saw a ladder, tall, endless, its base on the earth. It stopped reaching the heavens, and on it angels ascended and descended. Divine messengers connecting heaven and earth, and at the top of the ladder stood God himself. "Jacob, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac. The land on which you now lie, I will give to you and to your descendants. Your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread to the north and to the south, to the east and to the west. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. I am with you. I will keep you wherever you go. I will not leave you until I have done all that I have spoken to you." Jacob awoke with a start. He looked around. The wind whispered softly between the stones. The sky was still dark, but in his heart everything had changed. Surely, the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. Trembling, Jacob took the stone where his head had rested. He set it upright, poured oil over it, and named the place Bethel, which means house of God. And there he made a vow: "If God goes with me, if he keeps me on this journey, if he gives me bread to eat and clothes to wear and brings me back safely to my father's house, then the Lord shall be my God, and of all he gives me, I will give him a tenth." Jacob rose early in the morning. The right rising sun lit his face. He knew a long road still lay ahead. He knew he would face many trials, but now he no longer walked alone, for God had promised to be with him, and from that day on, Jacob was no longer the same man, but his true transformation was still to come. Jacob continued his journey. He crossed deserts, he passed rivers and valleys, and came to the land of the home of his uncle Laban. But though he believed he would find refuge there, what awaited him was an even greater trial, for just as he had deceived, now he would be deceived. Jacob arrived at a well in the fields of Haran. There he saw shepherds waiting to water their flocks. He approached and asked, "Do you know Laban, son of Nahor?" "Yes, we know him. Look, his daughter raised is coming with the sheep." Jacob looked up, and when he saw Rachel, his heart was stirred. She was beautiful. She was different, and in that moment Jacob knew he wanted to marry her. He went to Laban's house, told him his story, and after a month Laban made him an offer. "Jacob, it's not right that you work for me for nothing. Tell me, what shall your wages be? I will work for you 7 years for your daughter Rachel. It is better that I give her to you than to another man. Stay with me." And so Jacob worked 7 years, every day, every night, every hour, thinking of Rachel. But the time seemed short because he loved her, because he waited for the day she would be his wife. And finally the day came. The feast was prepared. The lamps were lit. Music filled Laban's house. Jacob waited for his bride, but in the darkness of the night, without his knowing, Laban gave him Leah, the older sister. And when Jacob awoke the next morning, his heart was filled with horror, and he went to confront Laban. "Laban, what have you done? I worked for Rachel. Why have you deceived me? It is not our custom to give the younger in marriage before for the older. Fulfill the week with Leah. And I will also give you Rachel, but you will have to work another 7 years." But Jacob had no choice. He married Rachel and served another 7 years. 14 years of deception. 14 years of waiting, 14 years of struggle, but God was not finished with him yet. Years passed. Jacob prospered. God blessed him with riches and livestock, but over time tension with Laban grew. Laban's sons looked on him with envy, and Jacob knew it was time to leave, and God spoke to him. "Jacob, return to the land of your fathers, to your family's home. I will be with you." But returning home meant facing Esau, the brother he had deceived, the man who had sworn to kill him. Jacob was afraid, but his greatest struggle would not be with Esau. It would be with God himself. Jacob crossed the river Jabbok with his family and possessions. But that night he remained alone, and suddenly a man appeared in the darkness without saying a word. He leapt upon him. Jacob fought with all his strength, with all his being. The battle was fierce, neither gave in. Neither fell. Hours passed until at dawn. The stranger touched Jacob's hip, and his socket was dislocated in that moment. Jacob understood this was no ordinary man. It was God himself who said, "Let me go, for the dawn is breaking. I will not let you go unless you bless me. What is your name?" "Jacob. You shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have wrestled with God and with men and have prevailed." Jacob released his grip. He fell to his knees, breathing heavily, and when he looked up, the stranger had vanished. The sun began to rise, and with each ray of light, Jacob was no longer the same. For that night, he had not only prevailed, he had been transformed. He was no longer Jacob the deceiver. Now he was Israel, the Prince of God, and though his hip remained wounded, his heart was healed. The next day Jacob lifted his eyes, and on the horizon he saw Esau. He was coming with 400 men. Jacob bowed 7 times, gracing for his brother's wrath. But Esau ran to him, and instead of attacking, he embraced him with a trembling voice. Esau said, "My brother Jacob wept. The past had been healed. The blessing had been restored because God had changed his heart. And the story of Israel was only just beginning." Jacob, now called Israel, had 12 sons, the patriarchs of the tribes of Israel. But one of them was special, a son born in his old age, a young man with dreams that would change history. His name was Joseph. From a young age, Joseph stood out among his brothers. His father loved him more than the others, and to show it, he made him a coat of many colors, a robe of distinction. But this love provoked his brothers' hatred, jealousy, rivalry. And when Joseph began to have prophetic dreams, his destiny was sealed one day. Joseph said with excitement, "Brothers, I had a dream. We were binding sheaves in the field, and my sheath rose up and stood upright while your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to mine." But one of Joseph's brothers responded with scorn, "Will you really reign over us? Will you indeed rule us?" Not long after, Joseph dreamed again, and this time the dream was even more powerful. "I saw the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing down to me." Then his father replied, "Shall your mother, your brothers, and I bow down to you?" His brothers hated him even more, and one day they decided to get rid of him. One day Joseph was sent by his father to the fields. His brothers saw him coming and said to one another, "Here comes the dreamer, let's kill him and say that a wild beast devoured him." But Reuben, the eldest, tried to save him. Let us not shed blood, throw him into the cistern, but do not lay a hand on him." So when Joseph arrived, they attacked him, tore off his robe, and threw him into a dry pit. There he remained alone, terrified. But his torment had only just begun while they ate. They saw a caravan of merchants heading to Egypt. Judah, one of the 12 brothers with greed in his eyes, proposed, "What will we gain by killing our brother? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. After all, he is our own flesh and blood," and for 20 pieces of silver Joseph was sold as a slave, bound for a foreign land toward a destiny he could not imagine. But what his brothers did not know was that Joseph was not alone, for God was with him. Joseph was taken to Egypt. A young man betrayed a slave in a strange land. But though he had been sold, though he had been stripped of his robe, they could not take what mattered most, the plan God had for him. And in his master's house, Joseph prospered. Joseph was bought by Pharaoh, captain of Pharaoh's god, a powerful man, and after a time he saw that Joseph was no ordinary slave. God prospered everything he did. Then Potiphar said with admiration, "Everything you put your hands to prospers, Joseph. From this day forward, you shall be the steward of my house. All that I have is under your command." Joseph went from being a slave to having authority in the house of an Egyptian official. He was honest. He was faithful. He was upright. But his greatest test was still to come. Joseph was young and handsome, and Pharaoh's wife looked at him with desire, day after day. She pursued him until one day, when no one else was in the house, she came near and spoke to him. "Joseph, lie with me." But Joseph replied firmly, "No. My master has entrusted everything to me. He has withheld nothing from me except you. How then could I do such a wicked thing?" Joseph tried to walk away, but she grabbed him by his robe and he fled. He left his robe in her hands and ran because he would rather lose his garment than lose his integrity. But the woman, full of rage, falsely accused him. "My husband, that Hebrew, tried to violate me. Here is his robe as proof." Potiphar believed the lie, and though he knew Joseph was a just man, he could not allow his honor to be stained, so he threw him into prison. The bars of the prison closed over Joseph once again. He had been betrayed, he had been stripped. But even in prison, Joseph continued to trust in God. And the prison warden saw him and said, "Everything you do prospers from this day forward. You will be in charge of the prisoners even in prison." Joseph was exalted, and there God gave him a new gift. The gift of interpreting dreams. One day, 2 of Pharaoh's officials were thrown into prison, the king's cupbearer and the baker each had a mysterious dream. And Joseph listened to them. The cupbearer said with concern, "In my dream, I saw a vine with 3 branches. Clusters of grapes budded and ripened, and I squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup." Joseph replied with certainty, "The 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days you will be restored to your position. When that happens, remember me." The baker, seeing that the interpretation was favorable, said, "In my dream, I was carrying 3 baskets on my head, and the birds were eating from the top basket." But this time Joseph answered, "With sorrow, the 3 baskets are 3 days. In 3 days you will be hanged." 3 days later the interpretations came true. The cupbearer was restored. The baker was executed. But the cupbearer forgot Joseph, and Joseph remained in prison for 2 more years, until one day Pharaoh had a dream no one could interpret. And then the cupbearer remembered Joseph and said to Pharaoh with urgency, "O Pharaoh, there was a man in the prison who interprets dreams with accuracy. His name is Joseph." Joseph was brought out of prison. He dressed in new clothes, and was taken before Pharaoh. The fate of Egypt now rested in his hands. "I have had a dream, but no one can interpret it. They say you cannot. I, my Lord God, will give the answer. I saw 7 fat cows, and after them 7 thin cows that devoured them. Then I saw 7 full heads of grain, and afterward 7 withered heads that consumed them. What does this mean? God has shown Pharaoh what is to come. 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. My counsel is that you appoint a wise man to store up provisions during the good years, so that Egypt may survive the crisis. Can we find anyone like this man in whom is the Spirit of God from this day forward? You shall be the governor of Egypt. Only in the throne will I be greater than you. Take this ring. Take this chariot. From now on all shall bow before you." Thus Joseph went from slave to the second most powerful man in Egypt. The years of abundance came and Egypt prospered. Joseph stored grain in the cities. He built storehouses. He prepared the nation for what was to come, and when the 7 years of famine began, Egypt had bread, but in Canaan the drought brought misery. And Joseph's brothers came to Egypt seeking food, unaware that the one they had sold as a slave was now their savior. Jacob sent his sons to Egypt, all of them, except the youngest Benjamin. The 10 brothers appeared before the governor, and when they saw him they bowed before him. Him not knowing that the man they bowed to was their own brother Joseph recognized them instantly, but they did not recognize him. And in his heart Joseph remembered his dreams. The past had returned, but now he had the power. He could take revenge, he could make them pay. But in his heart God had another plan. Joseph watched them coldly and spoke to them harshly. "You are spies, you've come to see the weakness of our land. No, my lord, we are sons of the same father, we are 12 brothers. But the youngest remained with our father, and the other is no more." Joseph felt a knot in his throat, but he did not reveal his identity in his heart. He wanted to know if they had changed. So he put them to the test. "One of you will remain in custody. The rest may go, but you shall not see my face again unless you bring your younger brother." The brothers returned to Canaan and told everything to their father. But Jacob resisted and said, "Joseph is gone. Simeon is in prison. Will I lose Benjamin too?" But the farming was unbearable, and finally Jacob allowed Benjamin to go with them. When they arrived, Joseph saw his younger brother, the only one who had not betrayed him, the only one who still had purity in his heart. But one final test remained. Joseph invited them to a banquet, treated them kindly, but as they left he gave a secret order: "Place my silver cup in the sack of the youngest." When the brothers departed, Joseph sent his guards after them. They were stopped on the road. Their sacks were searched. When the cup was found in Benjamin's sack, the hearts of the brothers broke. They were brought back to Joseph. They bowed before him and pleaded for Benjamin. "My lord, if Benjamin does not return, our father will die of sorrow. Please take me as a slave in his place." But let the boy return to his father. Judah's words moved Joseph's heart. Now he saw something different in his brothers. Before they had sold a brother without remorse. Now they were willing to sacrifice themselves for the youngest. Joseph could bear it no longer. He stood up and burst into tears. His brothers looked at him confused until he said, "I am Joseph, your brother, the one you sold into slavery." The others were stunned. Fear gripped them, for they knew Joseph could make them pay. But in his eyes there was no vengeance, only tease, only forgiveness. "Do not be afraid. It was not you who sent me here, but God. He sent me ahead of you to preserve your lives. Go and bring my father, for there are still 5 more years of famine, but I will provide for you." The brothers embraced and wept together. Hatred was healed, the past was redeemed, and the family was restored. But one final encounter remained. Joseph's reunion with his father. When Jacob heard the news, his heart stopped. "Joseph is still alive. Take me to him before I die." Jacob departed with all his family to Egypt, and when Joseph saw him, he ran to meet him. After years of pain, after years of absence, Jacob embraced his son and with tears in his eyes said, "Now I can die in peace, for I have seen your face, and I know that you are still alive." Jacob and his family settled in Egypt there. The nation of Israel grew and multiplied. Jacob lived out his final years in peace, and before he died, he blessed his sons. But Joseph lived to see the future. My brothers, God will surely visit you. He will bring you to the land he promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Swear to me that when he does, you will carry my bones with you. For this is not our final home. Joseph died in Egypt, but his story did not end there, because centuries later, when the people of Israel were enslaved, a child would be rescued from the waters, a child who would grow up to deliver his people, a child named Moses, and thus begins the story of the Exodus. If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Genesis is not just the origin of the world, it is the origin of our story. It is the account of how God created, redeemed, and upheld his people despite the fall, despite sin, despite betrayal, because through every generation that from Adam to Joseph, God never abandoned his promise, and that promise is still alive today. This project has required effort, resources, and months of work. If this film impacted you, share it. Give it a like and leave a comment, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, because this story doesn't end here in a moment. 2 videos specially selected for you will appear on screen. If you enjoyed this movie, I recommend watching The Exodus, the incredible continuation of this biblical saga from slavery in Egypt to the burning bush, the plagues, and the crossing of the Red Sea. And if you want to discover another powerful story, I invite you to watch the Book of Esther, a story of courage and faith in times of danger, where a young Jewish woman becomes queen to save her people from destruction. 2 highly recommended films. So choose one and keep discovering with us the mysteries of God's Word. We'll see you in the next video. May God bless you. Amen.